it goes. It's up to no, our charge is Sneha ma'ams.
Yeah, that is why you put me in charge. I was so stressed the entire day. Just before joining, I took like 15 minutes rest. I watched TV and then I enjoyed like एग्जाम देने से पहले जो होता है ना shake off the nervousness. That was what I was doing. And then I was getting
No, but
ready and
it's so wonderful to have you both. I feel very
Thank
good. Both of
thank
you
you
are such
so much,
lovely
ma'am, for
young
saying
people. Yeah.
so. So
I feel very, very, I feel confident. See, we're all, none of us are, supremely confident. Even after years of teaching, when I entered a classroom, I used to feel nervous. With those 19, 20-year-old fellows in the classroom, I used to always feel nervous. But then after some time, there are some faces that are very comforting. So in the same way, when the Zoom thing first started, even now, every time there's a program, something or the other will happen. Yeah, bijli nahi hoga, or the connection nahi lag raha. You get so unnerved. How do you? You run classes also. Which is makes you more confident, I think, because you have little kids who you are teaching. And Gargi, are you working? Are you teaching in
helps.
the university or something?
Yes, ma'am. I was teaching
Oh,
before. Right now, due to my family, I'm not teaching because I have a small kid. I have to look after him and
okay.
study. So I'm not doing that.
Okay, how old is he? How old is he?
Ma'am, he's 7 years old.
Oh, very
Okay.
small.
Yes.
So you checked up your
Seven.
work for him, for his sake.
Yes, absolutely, ma'am. Because he has a lot of school homework, his studies, his exam, a lot of activities. If I don't pay attention to, then it won't be done. So
Yeah.
I had to quit my job, ma'am.
But you're doing your poetry and your writing and things like
Yes.
that,
So,
So
anyways,
that's it.
we're live now. I think we should start the start, show.
Okay.
So, over to Sneha
But without
ma'am.
the
Yes.
We had the honor of having Sanjay Lazar sir joined. He's joined us
okay,
on Facebook, but yes, he had this difficulty
wonderful.
of
Sir, you are on mute. Sanjay sir, you're on mute.
unmute, sir. Unmute your mic. Unmute your mic. Yeah.
Sir, you're still on mute, Sanjay sir.
No, 1 second. Something
Sir,
wrong.
you're still on mute.
Yeah, okay.
No, yeah, is this better? Can you hear me now?
Perfect, sir. Perfect.
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect.
The Facebook Live was not working for some reason.
No, it's
Good
going
evening.
on.
And sorry to be 3 minutes late, but tech glitches. Yeah, I was having a problem on Facebook Live, so you can hear me now. I can't see what
There.
you're showing me.
It's on Facebook.
No. I was having problems logging on through
Oh, yeah.
Facebook.
Okay.
Yes.
Sure.
Good evening, and thank you for
Good
having me.
evening.
And I could hear you all chatting in the background. Sorry, I had to rush. I was at the World Book Fair, and yeah, I had to, scramble down here. So
You're in Delhi?
I am in Delhi. Yes, I'm at the World Book Fair at Pragati
Okay.
Maidan, and it just wound up, and I rushed here, and my Uber cab got lost. So as I got here, then internet packed up. So one after the other things kept happening. But like they say, it's wonderful that at least we are here together. So yeah. Good to see you all. And let's start. I mean, as you.
Yeah.
Welcome, sir. Welcome to the show of Fertile Brains book launching. We are glad to have you here.
You're recording this, Dr. Gargi?
Yes.
Wonderful.
We are all glad to have you, sir, tonight. The Fertile Brains has launched 3 promising books till date, and today we are here in the My Book section of the Fertile Brains by Prasanna K. Kumar. who is the founder president of the Fertile Brains, a widely acclaimed poet and humanitarian. Today, in the My Book section, we are going to launch and talk an autobiographical saga of a very eminent figure in the field of aviation, a person who is an economics honors and an international law degree holder from Hong Kong University and Harvard Law, who has completed more than 12 years of VVIP flights, led a national trade union, All India Cabin Crew Association, for 25 unbroken years, fought countless court battles in India and abroad, worked as a coordinator for the IFS department in the director's office, and also held the position of section head at Air India Customer Care. He proudly calls Air India his air. Today, we are going to talk about On Angel's Wings by Mr. Sanjay Lazar, a book that tells the tale of the trials and tribulations faced by Mr. Sanjay from the age of 12. While he has seen more grief, loss, and challenges than anyone can imagine, his autobiography is not just a sad, gloomy set of incidents that he has encountered as a child, then a teenager, and thereafter. For me, what sets this book apart is the tenacity with which he tells the grave injustice he and his brother faced at Williams College, the crew and passengers of Kanishka Air India 182 faced, and the families of the fallen plane faced at the hands of Canadian government and judicial system. A book which is a must read, says the renowned journalist Barkha Dutt. I can't agree more when best-selling author Veer Sanghvi calls it a moving read. Mr. Sanjay Lazar, we would like to hear few words from you before the official book launch. Over to you, sir.
Good evening, and thank you to Prasanna ji and all four of you, three of you ladies, for having me on your show today. I'm grateful. Like you've rightly pointed out, my life has been a mixed bag with a lot of struggles, and starting with, of course, my late younger brother, and then, of course, the tragedy of the Air India 182 Kanishka. But and thereafter, as you've probably read, struggling to retain my family's home and fighting in the courts and learning, getting to know the nuances of law pretty early. I joined Air India. I was the youngest employee that they took, and I flew for 37 years until last year when I took a VRS. And how I slowly grew through life, became a unionist and a trade union leader, and then led that organization for a long time. Besides which, also simultaneously pursuing my studies, obviously, because I was just a 12th fail at that time, and then going beyond that to seek justice. Whether it was lobbying through parliament in India, or talking to politicians, or going for the criminal trial in Canada, or insisting on Justice John Major's inquiry, a public inquiry. So there was always strife and struggle in my life right throughout, and I learned very young in life how to you know combat adversity, if I should say it. And I took each step as a challenge. So, at the end of many years, when I decided to hang up my boots in Air India, and of course, like you read, serving the prime ministers, various prime ministers, presidents, and dealing with a great part of Indian aviation, which was, which in those years was just nascent and growing. But yeah, I decided to hang up my boots so that I could write this book and the next two that are following, the trilogy, which deal with this entire subject from 1984 to 2024. And it's a long journey, and it's still an open chapter. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. Now, let's officially launch the book On Angel's Wings.
One second.
Yes.
Yes. This is my copy also. Yeah, thank you. That's my book, and really proud and
Yes, sir.
grateful that, all of you are with it. So thank you.
Congratulations, sir.
Thank you. Thank
And
you,
I
Kasim.
like the tagline.
Yeah, you
Yes. Many
tagline.
congratulations for this wonderful book.
Thank you. I'm glad. I'd love to hear your individual views on what you thought about each phase of the book, and even if it is critical, I'd like to hear what you think. And I can see a lot of flags in yours, ma'am.
Yes.
Miss Goel, I can see lots of
So this
orange flags, pink flags, green flags. So that
something
makes me
my
very thrilled.
daughter has taught me something, the way
Very
to
good.
take
Very good.
notes.
But I must tell you before I start, when I first sat down to write, I just, you've read the foreword and you've read the introduction, and you know how I started writing. I'd been researching this for many years, and it was something that I had to do as a son for my family, my parents. And it's a tribute to them, actually. And uh, I started off with the idea of writing 40 to 50,000 words. And then I, told my editor, we'll do 45, 50, 60,000. We wrote 65 and I sent it across to her, and she slashed it and it came down to 52. And then when I rewrote, it went to 1,20,000 words. Then we had to edit and bring it down to 92,000. So in all, I've written more than 2.5 lakh words already on this story, which is going to be the next, second. So that's why. So a lot of marks and notes you must have made. I'd be very interested to hear. Please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I am indeed honored to be a part of this magnificent autobiography, which tells the story of resilience and courage of Mr. Sanjay. Now, we'd like to hear about the book from Dr. Gargi Saha. Dr. Gargi is a creative writer born and raised in Pune. She has been honored with the Excellence in World Poetry Award in 2010, the Rabindranath Tagore Memorial Award, and India Independence Day Award for Poetry in 2022. Over to you, Dr. Gargi.
Thank you, Sneha ma'am, for such a wonderful introduction. First of all, I would like to congratulate Sanjay sir for bringing out such a marvelous book packed with bravery, determination, and heroism. I wonder the courage of a teenager who, despite losing his family, fought till date to discover the truth about the reality of the terrorist act. And he went on, he approached the government several times about the bombing effect. On Angel Wings is the first part of the trilogy which deals with the life and times of Sanjay Lazar, who lost his entire family in the Air India bombing and traces his life as a survivor of the tragedy. It flies through the journey of life that the child of the disaster, chronicling the struggles that the child and legal cases and fights of the body and funeral. It traces a story through the decades of aviation in India and his fight for justice in Canada, the failure of the criminal trials, his runs with the government and law. His passage in the AICCA Union and through the Air India's glorious history in Gulf War, meeting J.R.D. Tata, Balasaheb Thackeray, meeting and serving former Prime Minister Vajpayee was a great honor for him. Life is full of ups and downs. Though he was orphaned at a very early age, still life had great expectations from him, and he met numerous gliteratis and famous personalities in his life. This is a story of courage, leadership, strength, and triumph of the human spirit over terrorism, sorrow, and tragedy, and how he emerged as a successful veteran trade union leader and lawyer. On Angel's Wings is a book of horror that should not be inflicted on any human being. As a young boy, he lost his entire family to a brutal act of terrorism. But his dogged pursuit of the truth was not diminished but only strengthened. This book deals diligently each piece of detail, the destruction of evidence, the political pussyfooting, the missed opportunities that effectively let the killers of Kanishka go away. I became very emotional for Sanjay on learning that he lost his whole family in air bombing. This was quite unexpected. How could he live his whole life all alone when the family plays a vital role in shaping one's personality? Nevertheless, Ivan, Celia, and of course many others helped him miraculously in the ocean of life to cross the hurdles and barriers, as if gods conspired and sent the right people to help him to aid Sanjay's predicaments. This book also portrays the human greed for property after his parents died, but Sanjay consults lawyers to be a fair owner of his legal property. He has always fought for truth, and God has helped him in numerous ways. I would just like to ask you something, sir.
Please ask Gargi ma'am.
Okay. Sir, could you please tell me something about the security aspect of the airport? How was it that they could place the bomb in the plane? I'm very curious about knowing that.
Okay.
You had mentioned in the
Yeah.
book that their security was not working properly in the airport,
Yeah.
but still, if you could throw some light on that.
So first of all, Dr. Gargi, I want to thank you for your reading and going through my book and taking the pleasure, the care uh, to study every point. And these are points you mentioned rightly so that only a very keen observer would have. And I must say I've read some of the reviews you've written earlier as well, on the page. So I'm quite aware, and that's actually how I got in touch with Prasanna. So let me first tell you the question you first asked me is part of my second book, but I will tell you the story. I think you're aware. Somebody else speaking? Oh, no. I think you're aware that in 1984 we had Operation Blue Star, and after that we had Mrs. Gandhi's assassination, and then we had the terrible Sikh tragedy, the riots. The Babbar Khalsa and various Khalistani groups at that time had decided to attack Indian targets, and one of the main targets they threatened was Air India. And in those days, there were warnings sent out as early as October of 1984, October, November, just after Mrs. Gandhi died, that they are going to, bring down Air India aircraft. There were telexes sent all over the world. So the entire security apparatus of all Air India flights was very tight. But however, on that particular day, and also in those days, you must remember, we're talking of 1985. The system of baggage reconciliation that exists today for aircrafts, passenger checks in, they make sure the passenger follows the bag. So if the passenger checks in on one leg, let's say New York to London on British Airways, and is coming from London to Bombay or London to Delhi on Virgin, they make sure that the passenger is there before they put the bag on board. In the olden days, they didn't do that. It came from Vancouver on CP Air, Canadian Pacific Air, and it came into Montreal, and it was insisted that the bag be put on. Now that has changed. So that was one fault. The second fault is uh, the machine was not working on that day. So they used handheld machines. The X-ray machine broke down. So could have been mistake, could have been chance, could have been planned. But the Canadian airport authorities failed completely in their job. Completely. There were dogs that had sniffed and barked. They didn't allow them. So the situation before Kanishka and today are vastly different vis-a-vis, airlines. And I'd also like to say, apart from El Al, which is the Israeli national airline, Air India has traditionally had the best security in the world, perhaps, uh, for aviation because of the political situation in our country, even in the 80s, and because of the many secessionist groups we have. We have JKLF, we have the Khalistanis, we had one time had the LTT, we had the Bodos, we had, in every part of our country, we had a group that wanted to break our country apart. So Air India as an airline has been was very, very diligent. These were faults, I believe, that fell in the lap of the Canadians, not us, Indians. That's it.
One more thing, may I ask, or should go to Roopali ma'am? Or
No,
what
Yes.
do you
please, you're
suggest?
free
You
to
know?
ask. I'm sure I've got plenty of time, so I hope you all have plenty of time
Okay.
too.
Okay. The two terrorists who planted the bombs in the aircraft, did they light board the plane from Toronto itself or from different places?
You see, first of all, they never even came near the aircraft. That's the most important thing. And deliberately, I'm really delighted, Dr. Gargi, that you're raising these points, because I have not gone into the details of the entire conspiracy in my first book. I have started the book from the bombing, and I wanted the reader to understand that the first book was very autobiographical. It was not only about the bombing of the Kanishka, it was my life, how it got impacted, and what happened after. The period 1 year before that, or 2 years before that, will be dealt with later. Let me tell you. That's why I told you that they checked in 2 bags uh, from Vancouver on CPA. One went to Tokyo, one came to Toronto, Montreal. Okay. So the alleged people did not, uh, somebody sent a message, did not even actually board our aircraft. They didn't board the Air India 182. They didn't need to. They had through checked their baggage. Nobody used to check if the passenger was on board. One fellow just came from Vancouver to Montreal with a baggage and a ticket that went to Delhi. He insisted his bag was tagged all the way to Delhi. He got off in Montreal and he did not board the aircraft. The same thing happened when they sent the bomb to Tokyo. He insisted that it got tagged. He never boarded the aircraft and the aircraft went off. That's what it is. And there were not two, there was a group of them, which you will learn in the subsequent book, but it's also detailed in the chapter about the trials, and that you can see the names. You know the people who got away, the people who got killed, whatever it was.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Doctor.
N- Dr. Roopali, we would like to hear from you. So, Dr. Roopali Sircar Gaur is a former professor from Delhi University, a poet, author, travel writer, editor, and social justice activist. She is the founder president of UAT, which works for girls and boys. Over to you, ma'am.
Well, welcome, Sanjay,
Thank you.
and thank you so much for, you know, one comes to know a person by the way they send the book, and you have written a lovely little note which says happy reading and hope you enjoy reading my life story. Yes, your life story is a tribute to your family. It is one of the most moving narratives that I have read, and I have not been able to, you wouldn't believe it if I tell you that I ordered, a book light so that I can read it at night and not disturb my husband. So I've been reading it in the middle of the night at 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and so on and so forth. And it's a very interestingly written book because, firstly, it is, of course, my friend who just sent a message, her husband's family also died on that flight.
Oh, really?
His yes. So
What were
Dr.
their names?
Mrs. Sujata Rao, Bhaskar Rao, Mr. Bhaskar Rao was there in India, and his family, his brother's family flew on that flight. So I have asked her to join in, but she's finding it difficult, so she's on the Facebook live streaming. So she's watching us and listening to this. So what I find in your book is firstly your title. It says Beyond the Bombing.
Okay.
It's so important for us in order to um, in order to put to rest, in a sense, a closure. We do all these pujas and things like that when people die, and it's a closure. For you, writing this book is a kind of closure, and it's a great tribute to your family, to your mother, to your father, to Sylvia, who looked after you, your brother. How much of love you have, Sanjay, for people. And because you have so much love for others, that you have received so much. that you've received so much. And it's also very interesting that how destiny works. For all of us who have lost somebody or the other, sometime or the other, and we always fear. Every time we board an aircraft, we fear. We really board it with fear. It's very interesting. We pray when the flight takes off. But you keep saying that you're a 12th fail. Do you realize that you have failed in the exams that you could live today to write this book? If you had passed, you'd have gone with your family on this trip, and we would have never known anything. So I don't know how God's, ways are, how it works, but you're an inspiration. Your book is an inspiration. And there are very poetic moments also. For example, where you talk about, you say that the stages of shock and grief that I discovered back then continue to affect me today. And as I realized that I have deeply embedded grieving process that was never fully realized. Once the initial shock of the bombing subsided, I had to confront the inevitable reality of death. When you meet the harbinger of death face to face, you realize how deeply it has penetrated your subconscious, leaving an indelible impression beyond words. In us, there is a poet. In all of us, who are sitting here, we are poets. And in you, there's a poet. There's that saying, ना मैं शायर तो नहीं हूँ, पर जब से तुमको देखा, शायरी आ गई. So thank you so much for having written this. It's
Thank
very, very important to write. It's very important to write, and your love for your brother, your younger brother, the bonding with your sister Sandita, for example, it's so cute. You used to feed her and take care of her. The way you gave away money to to Sylvia's family. You let it go. Says so much about you. I'm so happy to have met you through your book.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
And we're very fortunate. We're very grateful, to the sense, our family is increasing, thanks to Prasanna. Our family all over the world is increasing, and welcome to the family, Sanjay. I'm sorry if I sound very sentimental and emotional,
No, I'm so
but
happy.
as a mother, I always think, I see my child in every boy. I see my son in every boy. I see my daughter in every girl. That's how I am. And there are parts of your book that, especially I looked at the gender thing that you fought for. Air India did not allow its air hostesses to marry. One of my classmates, she was an air hostess with Air India, and she quietly got married. And when they discovered, they threw her out of the job. And then I specifically read that chapter because I wanted to talk about it. That was a big fight, that is a fight for gender equality, to have women also have the right to work, be married, have children like anybody else, and that you were part of it, that you were part of that justice. It makes us very proud. It makes us very proud. And you've been very brave in telling us that you had taken to drugs, and that you had, taken to some liquor. But despite that, that is what I noticed, that, despite the fact that you had started going into this, you managed to get out of it. You see, that is what's important. That the others have went to prison and they got involved in other things, but you tasted these things, which I suppose many times, it's age related, and the kind of stuff that was going on. And, in those days, these were all, everybody was trying it out. But you were able to get out is a tribute to your family, because of the kind of father you had, the kind of mother you had, the kind of people you had in your background. So thank you so much. The writing is incredible. If I talk about it's a narrative, you can't put this book down. Truly, you cannot put this down. I hope my sincerity comes out in what I'm saying, that it's a book whose narration is so lucid, so honest, so authentic, so real, that even I can, and the fact that even when you're writing about your tragedy, you are feeling the loss of all those people who died on that flight. You're connected with them because they were not only friends of your family, but because they were people And you are a people's person. You've been fighting for the rights of people, as the job that you are doing as a trade union leader, is difficult. It makes it difficult even to work in your workplace. So I will come in again and speak a little more later. But right now, thank you so much, Sanjay. Uh,
Thank you.
it's it's really a book that is full of love. It's full of love.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, doctor. And I'm so grateful that you spoke so honestly and from your heart. I could feel it. It touched me, and that's exactly what I wanted to do. I did not want to write a whitewashed, you know, sequence of events. When you want to tell a story that is so heart pulling and tugging and mind numbing, you have to be, first of all, true to yourself, and secondly, true to your reader or somebody. I wanted every one of my readers to actually get into my shoes and feel the pain and feel the joy when I had joyful moments, feel the sadness when I had the sadness. To be truth be told, the flow of the narration, I must give credit to my remarkable editor, Tina, who had great, great nightmares with me because I'm a very difficult person to work with. I kept telling her, no, I won't change this. I want to. So I stuck to, a lot of the words, but she found I was getting really deeply emotional, and then, some things were really flat. So we sort of balanced it out. We didn't make it too high on the emotional level, and we didn't make it too flat as well. On the gender part, I just wanted to clarify, doctor, the gender first case predates all of my life in Air India. It's 1980. I joined in 85. And when I became a union leader, because of the union I was representing, unfortunately, I was on the wrong side of the case. However, once my daughter was born, I changed my thought process, and I'm glad that gender justice prevails in Air India and across our great nation. So I'm really thankful for your reading. Very deep, and I'm glad. I hope your husband also reads it now that you're done reading it, and you will enjoy my second book even more. I promise you. And incidentally, I've
You
been
know,
writing poetry. I've been
when
writing
you
poetry
since you
from the age of
mentioned
9.
since you mentioned my husband, he's a Fauji veteran and has
Okay.
been in Kashmir most of his life. So terrorism is something that we have lived in for every second. A phone
Yes.
call coming from there meant, just as your phone call. The
Yes.
same way, every time my phone rang, I didn't know what the news was going to be. So this your book is also a protest against terrorism.
It
It
is
is a
absolute.
real protest
My
against, yes.
entire life is against terrorism, and my fight is against terrorism in all walks of life across the world. So, and just about poetry, which you wrote, that you all are all poets. I've been writing from the age of about 9. So I've got over 1,500 poetries, which will be published someday, hopefully.
I was going to mention that you have written poetry, so you must come on our Zoom poetry programs.
Yes, I will definitely come. I will definitely. Yeah.
So I'd just like to add, your book conveys immense love for your family,
Yes.
your brother Sandeep, and for Sandita, though she was your stepdaughter, stepsister, I'm sorry, but the love which you had for her, even in the plane crash when you got the cabbage doll, the portrait, the image, that is so, so, so touching. I really liked it. Your
Thank you.
love is immense for the family, and the book stands out as a tribute to the family for the lost members.
It's
And one more thing which I would like to say is pain the pain, your personal loss, it can be universalized for so many victims of the air crash. It is because of you that we came to know the stories because you're an author. But so many people have lost their lives whose stories are unknown, right? So thank you for sharing such a wonderful story with so much of truth, honesty, and love. Your narration is so incredible, man. So
Thank you.
thank you
Thank
so
you, Dr.
much.
Malgi. Thank you. And I want to just clarify here also that, of course, my brother, late brother was, part of my heart and life. But even after my dad remarried, uh, my step, I mean, I never referred to Sandita as my stepsister ever. She's a sister. We have the same father. Even where I don't have the same father, human bonds are different. They transcend relationships. So I think it's society that puts tags on them. Uh, we don't really need to be doing that. I mean, this is my thought process and feeling. But yes, thank you. And yes, I brought her up from the day she was born, so I know what she was like, and I know the same way I looked after my brother when he was unwell and in hospital. So for me, both were equal. It's just that I spent many more years with Sandeep than I did with Sandita. You do also know that Sandita was named after Sandeep. So it's just a feminine thing. And tribute like Dr. Rupali said.
If I told step, I'm so sorry. Sorry,
No, no,
sorry
no,
for
no,
that.
no, not at all. I just wanted to, and Dr. Rupali
Because
also.
I've not mentioned it anywhere in the book. I'm sorry, sir.
No. Dr. Rupali also pointed out, about the love of family and getting into drugs and coming out. And I must also mention, I've mentioned very deeply in the book about the relationship of my sister's godparents, Ivan and Celia, with me throughout the book, and how they've looked after me even before my parents died and even after my parents died. So that was a very bonding, strengthening, anchoring factor for me. So yes. Thank you. And no, you didn't offend me at all, Dr. Gargi. I just wanted to, there may be a few people watching on Facebook Live. I don't know. They shouldn't, people shouldn't get the wrong idea. So we'll be clear on that. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Mr.
Yes.
Prasanna, now I'd like to hear your insight on the
No,
book.
before sharing my view, I think we have, Sujata ma'am, who is a part of, I think she's the one who, suffered this ordeal too. So, I would like to request Sujata ma'am to share her, turn on your video and mic, because he was also a victim of that.
Over to you, Sujata ma'am.
Uh, she has messaged me, and I would
I
put
think
it in
she's
the
messaged
comment.
something in the group also.
Yeah, I think.
She said, I'm here, Rupali, listening. She's listening, she said. So, Prasanna, you can
But
give your insight.
beyond bombing, yes, rightly, this is very catching, I would say, because I could see the time frame from 8 to 18 years. From 8 to 18 years, being a poet, he started his writing. How could it be? Put it like a choppy childhood? It's not like, I mean. Uh, at 17 years of his, he experienced the crude reality of being a human being. The kind of, iniquities of the human being, the avarice and the desperation, the greed, and everything. Despite that, you know, I like the point where the people have he experienced the love of Cork, people of Cork. There is a line. There is a line where he mentions, uh, it seems that divine and sure the Kanishka victims fell into the lap of God's unwavering love. And there is one line that I it's very, emotional, because Sanjay sir has felt the, you know, um, what do you call, a sense of regret for not being able to, for him not being able to be there with his younger brother, Sandeep. He's just 12 years old, and he has been doing everything for his daughter. It's like going, taking him to the bathroom, feeding him. And again, 18 years, he is again in the desperation of searching. Uh, I cannot put that thing, but for the funeral, you have to identify identify the souls, to claim. They had to claim them. It's very difficult for being, it's as he said, it's a sadness, sickness, death became a familiar companion throughout his life. I cannot say throughout life, life is there in the head. So, uh, what a overwhelming a swell of tears that come down while I was while I was reading each line. I feel the poetic and kind of spiritual uh, evolved being. Yeah, evolved being is what I uh, sensed. He clearly mentioned here where in the page number 68 where he mentions that, was it because I had failed that I did not go to Canada with daddy and the rest of the family on that flight? Was it a punishment for me to stay behind while for the rest of the family holidayed in Canada? Or did I not want to go with them? Was it a punishment for me to stay behind? Because he experienced the kind of, what do you call, um, people's anger and many of the things. He I could easily I could imagine the love that
Ivan.
Ivan showered, and being a foster father like, and the difference of opinions occurs a later part of life, and how he got both got can miscommunication, and they both got separated. But then again, he goes to he gets a chance to meet Ivan, and where he lies on the death of bed of death, and well, he hugs and says that, and that's really moving. And I don't have enough words because I cannot touch the part of entire Kanishka, because we got 131 of 329 lives that could be climbed, and it is Kanishka bombing, and there is subsequent trials and things, and many of the things are covered. But in that, I could only see the process of evolution for a human being experiencing and later what, this he being a poet, claiming to be filed as in the intermediate. I cannot say him. I cannot. I would not like to put the word fail, but then just later, we come to know that his son, being an accomplished poet, an accomplished writer, he's an accomplished published writer. He proudly takes
Yes,
him. So that is something. I got emotionally shocked. I got emotionally. I'm carried away while I was reading, and I was like into, she should go into like a swashbuckler kind of movie. It's like a blockbuster movie. It could be made into, to a next level. So that is, my reaction to it. I have some question also. Was your father, really know about the incident? I mean, it's like, was he first? I mean, has he got the kind of, what do you call him? A hint or something like is gonna be, I mean, like putting a letter in the cupboard, and asking here you to not to have the contest against his younger brother, some cousin in Kerala. So I just wanted to know about that.
First of all, thank you, Prasanna ji. Uh, I'm glad that I'm actually happy that my book moved you in the way that it is, because that was the intention, and that is the intention of any author or writer. You want to be able to impact lives. You want to be able to change lives. You want to be able to improve lives. Some people do it through sport. Some people do it through art. our word is the spoken word or the written word. And if you can reach, if like you, I can reach 1,000 readers or 100 readers or 100,000 readers, I would be delighted, because at some point it's not about my story. It's about the bigger picture, that terrorism. It's about teaching young kids that you can get devastated by life and still climb up and stand up on your feet again. It's a lot of mixed emotions. There is tragedy, there is huge tragedy, but from every fire emerges a phoenix. And you have to, I this has been my creed in life going forward. Yes, it was, there were traumatic moments identifying the bodies, like you said. There were terrible moments, but for us to be able to uh, feel, and I had been an airline kid. You have to understand, at that age, my parents were already in Air India. I had traveled the world, at least partly, if not all, already at that age. And I'd seen number of countries, number of people. But to find the Irish was, was like, the home of God, because they were the most caring, and they are the most caring, loving people you could ever meet in the world. Uh, they took us into their arms. I mean, I've not described it in total, but when they heard about this tragedy and they saw families coming, they realized, they Googled about Indians and India. India was, in the 80s, was not very well known to Ireland. I'm not talking about Northern Ireland. This is the southern part of Ireland. you know, they brought marigold flowers. They brought their own flowers for our dead. They created monuments, they created memories, and they took a great deal of care. It also impacted the doctors in the hospitals. It impacted, everybody. So one second, sorry, I'm getting a lot of this.
I don't know why Sujata is not seen. She has joined us.
Sorry,
Yes, ma'am, yes.
sorry. That's why I've written a chapter about Cork, because the people of Cork, even this year, sorry, 2023, I went there again, and the love is so much. You will not imagine. People opened their homes for family members to come and live whilst they identified their bodies. People opened their homes year after year for the last 38 years. Even today, even if no Indian family goes there to look after or do the rites or do the puja on, they arrange for it every single year. They clean the monument. That shows love of a people beyond just bonds, beyond humanity. So, which is why, amazing place, amazing people, very kind-hearted, very loving, and yes. Now, you asked about my dad and whether he had a premonition. I don't know, Prasannaji, if you read that after he died, my uncle, that's his younger brother, came to London to come to Cork to him. And during that day, we were having a drink together and talking about my dad. And he said, your daddy always, he had rings on his wrists. So he always said, I'm going to meet a watery grave. He was a amateur palmist, astrology and palmistry. And about leaving the envelope in the cupboard, it was, we were a family that was very happy-go-lucky. If you know the airlines, I'm a child of the airline. We travel, we used to get free tickets in those days, and we travel, we have holidays, so you don't think of these things. But my brother's illness and death brought a lot of reality in our life, that we realized that you could lose a child at age of 10, 11, 12. Anybody could die at any time. You realize the frailty of human life, uh, that we're all mortals and we have to go someday. And that strikes, as a father, it probably struck him when he was so helpless, in the hospital, and otherwise with my younger brother. So I think that's why he started preparing, so that, and we've had discussions. We had, like I've written, I've narrated just a bit of that discussion, but I wanted people to know that this was even his thoughts, and this was one of the reasons when my uncle came. I didn't fight, on that property. I said, forget it, it's okay. It's only money. We have a lifetime to make. You will make, those things happen, change. You can strike a jackpot, you can become somebody famous, whatever it does. But amongst Indians, amongst Hindus especially, and although I'm not a Hindu, I'm a Christian, but you keep memories of your dead alive through fulfilling their wishes, you know, and that gives them karma, it gives them, shanti. So I felt in a way maybe, the few acts that I did probably, give them some peace. So that's what I felt about my dad. Yeah.
Sneha, with your permission, may I say a few words?
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Okay, since you're the moderator for the evening, um, there are three things that I wanted to ask you, or at least just talk about it, Sanjay. One
Yeah.
is recovering Sylvia's body and bringing it home, and how you fought to claim her as your member of your family, and what was it like to bring, you could only bring her body back, is it? Your father and your sister's body was not found.
No.
So that, and um, the other is that which struck me a lot was, you had two friends who committed suicide because they didn't do well in the pressure of their study. Now this is very, very important, because it's very important inclusion in your book, because one is that you didn't clear your 12th because it could have been a mistaken marking that was done, or whatever it was, because you were good in English and you still got 30 marks or something like that. But since a lot of children commit suicide and your parents were worried about it when they were going away, they were concerned that they were leaving you behind, that your two friends died. It brings me back to my son when he was in the 12th, and he was not, how 12th standard kids do. So I told him, I said, Arjun, you're not studying, to fail ho jayega, kya karoge? So he asked me, he stopped and he said, what do you want me to do? Because two boys had committed suicide. So he said that padhai nahi karunga, fail ho jaunga. So next time I'll sit down for the exam. Do they allow you to sit for the exam again? Can't I sit for the exam again? I said, yes, you can. He said, okay, so if I fail, I'll sit for the exam again. Or do you want me to jump from the terrace?
Oh
What would
God.
you prefer? So see how children, how the parents and how society pressurizes children. And so you are young mothers here, so you must remember that you must allow your kids to do, the university, the board exams can be repeated. There's no problem. You can repeat it. So I really wanted to know about Sylvia being recovered, because Sujata, I don't know why I'm not able to see her. Sujata's husband's brother, he lost his wife and children on the Ganesh, and then he has dedicated his life to running an NGO. Recently, last year, he got the Padma Shri.
Ashri.
Yes, he got the Padma
I'm aware.
Shri,
I'm aware.
and yeah, you may be knowing about him. I
Yes.
can't recollect his name.
He's
I wish I could see.
somewhere near Vishakhapatnam, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, 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 yes.
I'm aware.
So so all of you have dedicated your lives, and I do feel, people, your stepmother. People say, "Oh, my stepmother hai," but for you, she was mother. She was
Yes.
mother because you always remember the way she looked after your brother, and the diaries. The diaries are that they wrote. You have gone into their life. Your life is very, very beautiful and complex, and you have survived it all to write and be with us here today. And we feel very grateful. At least I do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'll answer, the first point you raised was about uh, going to recover Sylvia's body. And if you have gone through, the flight and how it took off and how I didn't know what had actually happened and how I discover that it may be, we're not going to look for a missing aircraft, but we're uh, going to look for an aircraft that could have blown up. When we reached there, then of course we had the bomb in the Heathrow Penta, the hotel I was staying that night, which was also a shock for me. And after that, to go to Cork and then understand uh, how the naval divers how the rescue operators were operating and how devastated they were when they came back each time was really painful. So yes, the process of recovery and the process of identification and the process of going through, you know, records and pictures and images was really very tough, especially for a young guy like me at that age, was extremely. You must also, I think, have gone across the section where I found a body and we had identified a body as my sister. And as you've all noticed, the love and the care and the depth I've had looking after her. I wanted her to be her so badly. And, one night before we were to leave, uh, the lady on the table next door said, that's my grandchild. And, and she started crying. And then we started going through the entire identification process again, talking to friends and family in Bombay and Madras, talking to my aunt and getting details of the jewelry, talking. She spoke to my cousin in Toronto, my uncle and aunt in Toronto to figure out. So it was an extremely, extremely traumatic period there. And, you know, to find, as human beings, we despair. I mean, you're a Fauji's wife, so you would know how other Faujis, if you don't get something to hold on to, even if you lose a family member, you're lost, you're really rudderless, and it becomes very painful. It takes a lot of effort to make the pain subside as it is, even when you get a body to cremate or to bury or whatever. But this way, so getting finding somebody was most important. I knew by then because we'd already seen the transcript of the cockpit. And I knew just before the bomb, my dad was in the cockpit talking to the commander, and it's recorded on the flight data recorder. So even in the original inquest, they've got his recordings, his voice recordings. So I knew that you know any bomb that was in the forward section would have just wiped out the forward section, and they wouldn't have been. So for us to get Sylvia's body was very big, and then I got into a fight over the family for who will cremate, who will bury, who will it became a little jamela there, and finally everything happened peacefully, and we had the funeral. But yes, it was a big important part. About suicides, yes, I mentioned this because specifically David was a very dear friend of mine. I'd met him, when we'd gone to Perth the year I passed my 10th standard, and I'd done really well. I didn't know that at that time. And he was a brilliant boy. And I didn't put it because, I failed the 12th. I put it because those were two important suicides, Kittu and David, uh, who are friends whom I knew, real flesh and blood people. And they were just, you know, around me all, in those years. And families put so much of pressure. And in those years, the examination papers had leaked, and we had parents coming and saying, please give us the paper, because the pressure of competitive exams, and this was, mind you, only a 12th standard. Both of them killed themselves over the 12th standard exam. It's not like they were doing, IIT, JEE or something like that. Even that is not, I tell my children, don't bother about your results. Study hard. We focus on the system. You get educated. Exams can come again
Yeah.
and again. It's fine. You've got to let your children grow and be as they are. So I wrote that as an example that, I feel people of my generation also should not make the mistakes people of my parents' generation perhaps made, is putting, 99% leke aao, engineer bano, doctor
बिल्कुल
bano.
बिल्कुल
You must let your child do what they want. Both my kids did BBA at very expensive private schools in India. And I told them, do what you want. My son said, I only want to write about football. So be it. He's a football lover. He writes, and he's a journalist. He writes beautifully. Not only football, but he's chosen to only deal with his sport. I'm happy with it. My daughter does film. I'm happy with it. They're happy doing what they are. Like you said, rather than jump from the terrace, I'd rather
Yeah.
have him repeat an exam. So we are fine with it. So it's important that people who read must understand these are the values that I would like to share now with people. I've done good things, I've done bad things in my life. Fair enough. We all have. I've made mistakes. I'm sure everyone has. It's how you build from there, from your mistakes and grow further. It's how you develop and how you transform yourself. So I want this book, like Dr. Gargi rightly said, it's not only transformational. It's not only, you know, I don't want it to become a motivational book only for people to survive an air crash. I want people to know that there was much equal worse or much worse stuff that I could have done or that I did do. And life is about, falling down and getting up, like Nelson Mandela says. You know, it doesn't matter how many times you fall. It matters how many times you get up, shake the dust off and keep walking further. That's what's important. And that's the message I want to give everybody, who's on watching this or who'll watch this later, that we need to understand that life will always throw challenges. Forget about life. God throws challenges at us and wants you to be stronger each time. So that's the key. So thank you. That's what I wanted to reply to you, Dr. Rupali.
We have, thank you so much. We have Sujata here, Sujata Rao, Sujata
At last,
Sankranti.
I'm
Yes,
visible and audible
yes.
to,
So we
I,
would like you to share some of your,
yeah,
the sorrows that you went through.
I say a few words. I mean, not like I already sent in the chat, I sent you a comment that I'm a fellow sufferer
I
too.
know. I saw that. I saw
Yeah,
that. Thank you very much.
I,
I
yeah.
share your pain and I know you share mine. And I know the wonderful work that you all do also. Yeah.
Mm.
Please,
Three
please,
of my three very young and very dear members of my family, exactly my husband's family. They went actually in that air crash down to the Atlantic, the watery burial, the watery grave they have. And I remember my husband was waiting. We were waiting. They were coming to Delhi, and we were waiting to receive them. And my husband had just asking the airport what happened, at what time is the flight landing. My husband was the area sales manager at that time, Air India. He worked for Air India for many years. So then suddenly I saw his face completely changing and saying, how sad, how sad, how sad. I did not know what he was talking about. And then he said this word, oh my God, watery burial they had. I still remember that echo that still echoes in my ears, what he said. And it was terrible, terrible indeed, that to have a beautiful, his wife was hardly 32 years old, beautiful girl, Manjari, her name was, and two little kids, 6 and 3, Sharda and Kiran, both. And it was very, very sad. I can't even say, I can't just tell you how we felt at that time. I'm sure just as Sanjay must have felt the shock, first a shock, and then the deep, terrible sense of loss, and then followed by a kind of anger and indignation, that why should this have happened to us? And definitely he must have felt, even at the age of 17, I'm sure, that kind of anger, a kind of anger in that. And it was not, it was a crash. Was it a crash? Because I can't call it a crash in the sense there was no technical snag. It was not inclement bad weather. It is just because of manipulations, plotted and planned and plotted by inhuman humans.
absolutely.
I mean, that is terrible, I can never forget it. And he says, I got his words, in one of his interviews, my brother-in-law said, Chandrasekhar, Dr. Chandrasekhar, call him Chandra. He said that, initially I could not even accept that it has happened. It was hard to believe that it had happened because the bodies were never recovered. Unless and until you see that, there is a burial, there is a funeral, how can you say somebody's life is over? I just, sometimes when I sit and when I go to Chicago, or even when I go to beaches, some beaches, and sit on the, looking at the sea and wonder at the depth of the ocean, somewhere so many secrets, so many mysteries are buried there. I just wonder, I always wonder and think about these children and my sister-in-law. Maybe they're somewhere in the seabed. This is a very devastating experience. It was definitely a devastating experience. But as Sanjay already expressed, that he had Chandra had found a purpose and a mission in life, and to serve the poor, the needy, especially in the village, where in the small town where his wife was born. He left his job, such a wonderful job here in Ottawa, and he left it, came to India and to Andhra Pradesh, Kakinada, and that is a village of his wife, not village, actually small town. And there he established Sankuratri Foundation. My surname is also Sankranti, Sankuratri Sankranti. So Sankuratri Foundation, which extended free education and free eye care and health care to all the rural folk around. And then it has grown to such an extent, it has really evolved in such a way. It is global recognition now. And as Roopali told you already, my brother-in-law, Dr. Chandrasekhar, has got Padma Shri Award recently, national and international recognition for whatever. But that's nothing. Recognition is not something which will never ever, fill the vacuum, or that loss, repair the loss which he had suffered. And I also want to tell you that sometimes Chandra, when he speaks, usually he doesn't talk much, but whenever he in that kind of a mood, he used to tell me, he told me many times, what saddens me most is the fact that these two children and also the wife were denied of a future, robbed of a future, and their potentialities could never be realized, whatever and the future which perhaps they have planned for themselves in the family, cozy little family, that was never to be. So that is what he says saddens me most. And whenever he sees somebody of 30 years old, 34 years old, he says, oh, I remember my son. I remember had he been alive, he would have been like this, that. So then all this happened. And when he says that, I wonder at the very nature of this act of terror, which was responsible for this unfortunate incident. And what is this actually the act of terror? They are fighting. I don't know why. It's a big. I sort of see an irony in it. Just they say that they're fighting for justice or to score a point. It's a symbolic gesture on that part, or just symbolic sort of act, a symbolic act of to register or to make a point, and to point. What does that mean? And I cannot understand that. That kind of it's a wild justice. It's a wild justice they're asking for. Even if they're asking for a wild justice, that kind of justice will lead to injustice, isn't it? Injustice to the victims and their families and the humanity at large. So this kind of the irony of this acts of terrorism as such. It's a question which I keep asking time and again. I actually wrote a novel centered around this terrorism, and but that we still ask this question. We continue to ask this question: why? what for is all this things done? I mean, this kind of so-called symbolic act of terror, to bring justice, to usher in justice, which only brings injustice.
Hello.
That's what I wanted to share with you.
Thank you so much, Sujata, for being here. Because I remember the time that your husband Bhaskar was all the time going to Cork and coming back and going there,
Yeah,
and how
I went a lot,
terrible it was. Yes.
he,
So when I read Sanjay's book, it all came back. It was so live. I said, you must be here today to be. It is just so that you both are sharing the same sorrow and the same kind of this thing.
the best
And
part
I
of
want to say something to Sanjay. Sanjay, I always studied in a missionary school, and the Irish. How is it? I don't see Sanjay. And is he there?
Sorry.
Is Sanjay there?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
1 minute.
Okay.
I'll come
You
back.
seem to have vanished. Yes.
No. I didn't
So
manage. I
I
just had to.
studied, all my life I studied in a missionary school, and there were Irish brothers and sisters, and they were so kind and so beautiful, people. And I remember a song, and so this evening I dedicated to all the people in Cork who take care of all of you and your families and all of our families too. That is, and it says the Irish eyes are smiling. When Irish eyes are smiling, all the world is gay. In the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. So your book about the angels and the wings and the Irish people. So I think that somewhere deep down humanity comes up. These cruel acts, these terrible cruel acts, have another class of people who are so different, who are close to God. So you have this, the Rakshasa and the God, the Satan, the Satan's children and God's children, so different.
So, thank you very much, Dr. Rupali. To Sujata ma'am, thank you very much for being here and telling your, very sad story also. And of course, I've heard about the work that you all do in Kakinada and, the Padma Shri and everything. It's,
yeah.
uh, it's become world famous. I would definitely love to get in touch with you. I've sent you my number and my mail
Okay.
ID, and I hope Dr. Rupali can share it. So I don't know wherever you are. You in India or Canada? I'm not aware, but wherever
No,
you
I'm in Mumbai.
you're in Mumbai. Oh, great! Then we're neighbors. That's okay. Which part of Mumbai?
I'm in Nerul, Navi Mumbai.
Not too bad. We're going to catch up then. I'm
You
good.
can take
I'm going to
my,
go copy you. Yeah.
please, Rupali can share my number with you and that'll more.
Yes, I'll do that.
I must say one more thing. How Sanjay and even my brother-in-law, they all have been able to transcend grief into something of a, what should I say? Kind of the positive, made a positive side of, found a positive way to transcend the grief. That is the lesson which you can give to each and every one of us, and everyone, how to transcend grief. And not, that is not easy. That is not easy. But it can be done. It can be done. And even my brother-in-law has said that I want to tell people, youngsters, that don't collapse, don't give in to anything. See, I have survived in spite of all these things, and I'm here doing something, trying to do something good for others, and you will be able to do it. So there is some kind of a, I think he has also written a book, like what is that's called Ray of Hope. Ray of Hope is the title of the book, is Ray of Hope. In that he says this is what I would like to advise. There is not, we can always survive and transcend grief into kind of humanitarian service. That's what he has done. Thank you, and Rupali, for giving me this opportunity to meet Sanjay.
Yes, and
Only a virtual meeting, but doesn't matter.
So we'll meet physically. We'll meet. I promise you. We will meet.
yeah.
Let me tell you,
And Sanjay,
ma'am,
and
sorry.
Yeah,
for all of you, Sanjay, Sujata Sujata was also teaching in Delhi University with me. She's the Commonwealth short story writing award winner. So she's
Oh,
also a fellow writer. And I think you both would get along together. And she's from Kerala, from from God's own country.
I'm
so am I. So am I. So,
and that's all. We are all Indians. That's all.
that's all. We
Yeah.
are all humans, And interesting point you make about transform. I have over the last few years been reaching out to so many families,
Mm,
victims or whatever we call them,
mm,
to see how they're doing. We've got our own small community, which some of the Canadian Indian families had set up, and that's grown into a big body, which you probably are here. It's called AIBFA, AIBFA. They
oh,
counsel each other, they help each other. And
mm,
even for the book, this book and the next book and the third book, I've been meeting families to get their feeling, to get their sense of hurt, to get how they've rebuilt their life. Some have told me that they don't want to be disturbed. Some have said that they
mm.
love to talk about it, because I believe that talking about this even now is a catharsis.
Yeah,
Your
exactly.
soul
Exactly.
needs to be spent, and this
Yeah.
is how one would do it. You know, so I know I spoke to Lata Pada a few months ago. She's in Bangalore now. She's come.
It's,
She said she did it through dance. So so many people do it differently. A very important point you also brought out, which I don't think many people. You spoke of crash, and for many years, people kept calling it a crash, and I
yeah.
corrected them in all my interviews. I say it was never a crash. It was murder. It was a bombing, which is
I,
why my title and in my book I always write it's not a plane crash. It's a bombing. It's murder. So I didn't want to make the title murder, but it was beyond the bomb of so and so, so and so, because it must be recognized this was planned, plotted,
yeah.
tested out, and executed over a period of months before they killed our families. So the world must know that, and the world must not forget. I don't mean to belittle other
Mm,
tragedies, but this was the largest tragedy ever in the history of mankind till 9/11 came up. But yet, even in our country, we do not even recognize it. I read a poll in shock about Canada 2 years ago that 90% of the people had forgotten it below the age of 40. I'll tell you that until, Canada had this incident 6, 8 months ago with Nijjar and Justin Trudeau, Indians had forgotten about this incident. And it's our aircraft, it's our people, and it was our airline. And there's no reason that we should be, allowed somebody else to change the narrative.
yeah,
It was
that's
a
right.
crime by a people by a group of terrorists who wanted a separate homeland, and I'm glad they've been defeated. In that, yes, we lost our families, and it's shocked me. It's tragic, but that is life. We rebuild, we go on, and we do things positively in memory of those whom we lost. That's the most important lesson. And as
Yes,
you've seen, Sujata's brother has done just that. The school
mm.
in Kakinada and teaching people and gone and won a Padma Shri. Brilliant. I mean, I'm so proud and delighted over that.
Excuse me.
The Canadian government says, no, Canadian government says it's a closure. It's not closure. I don't
No
think it
closure, no closure.
never be a closure to the concerned families, because it keeps the trauma.
Yeah.
There is no closure to it. We are reminded of it every moment, every minute. There's absolutely no closure. That's what I feel.
Absolutely.
Excuse me, just I want to add a point in this. There was a news in the India Times today, India Today, an archive about 1985. It says that it was terror in the sky. It had a detailed account of the air bombing. It said that it was not a crash. There was no technical fault. The plane had 3 engines, and the 3 engines could not fail together. If 2 of them had failed, it could have survived on one. And it had a detailed analysis of how it happened. It was not, it had no, it could not be a crash of any sort. It was bombing, it was planned, and the passengers, if it had been a crash, the passengers' bodies would have been ripped in water. I mean, the clothes, but they were just torn. it had entire analysis of the bombing, how it happened.
Terrible. Very bad. Very sad.
Sanjay sir, I would like to ask one question if time permits.
No, please. I have plenty of time. I have plenty of time. It's about y'all. If y'all have the time, that's all.
Sir, I believe that every book shapes one as an individual. So, you have talked about forgiveness in your book, but I genuinely believe that one cannot always forgive. For me, it's not easy. I can't forgive. But you said and even suggested it with such an ease that sunlight is the most beautiful antidote to hate, lies, pain, and suffering. So I like to ask that when did this realization come to you? Was it at that early age, the incident with Sylvia's family, which happened just after 2 months of your loss, or was it much later that you thought that it's like you should forgive?
This is a very tricky question. And you picked the favorite quote I have in the entire book. I've had gone to 2, 3 exhibitions with my book, and every time that promoter says, "Which quote would you like to use?" and I use this because uh, it's something that resonates deep within me. You know, I believe whatever the sin, whatever the crime, like I said, sunlight always is the best antidote. Um, to answer your point, I was a hot-headed young man at that time, 17. Uh, we let the funeral take place, and I went through the horror and the indignation of having my dad's house sealed. And I've written about that and how they came to measure the house and stuff like that. It affected me at that time very deeply that if you were Hindus, the ashes would still be hot. You know what I mean? Asti, Avida, it was like that. So even here, the body had just been buried in the ground, and here you were digging, graves for money, and it shocked me that human beings could be so full of, as a young kid, you don't want for money, you don't want property, you just want to have a good time, and I was exposed to the harsh realities of life. See, a 17-year-old in 2024 and a 17-year-old in 1984 were completely different. We led different lives. We had different society. India was a different country, you know, which is why, uh, I mean, I'm just diverting for a second. Even when I was in the process of writing the book, even my editor, who was a young lady, did not understand why I waited so many days to inform my family about Sandeep's ill health in boarding school. But you must understand in 1983 and 84 and 80, there was no telephones. We had to, book a trunk call 5 days in advance. So life has changed. There was no internet in those days. Today, we're, talking 6 people in 6 different parts of the country or the world. And so a lot has changed. So for me in those days, it was very shocking that this is what these people were doing. That realization did not strike me then. I don't want to pretend that I'm Mahatma Gandhi or I'm, Martin Luther King. I'm not. I wanted revenge and I wanted to take them down. But the only thing that stopped me then was my parents' words, my thoughts, and I said, because the following year I won the case. If you've read through, I gave up the money, I gave up everything, and I said, keep it, I don't care. Uh, I didn't care because I thought I've got a job, I'll be flying, I'll earn money, it'll balance out at the end. But the following year I won, and my lawyer said, let's file a case and take it back. And then that's when it struck. And I said, छोड़ो यार, पैसा दे दिया, अभी खत्म हो गया. It was a large sum of money. Let me not, uh, kid anybody. It was a large sum of money in today's terms as well. I mean, if you look at what a compensation you get for somebody dying in an air crash, it's phenomenal, right? But I thought to myself that whether it was, whether this struggle or the fight or going to a court with my dead stepmother's family over few dollars, pennies, few or many, it doesn't matter. Would that bring them peace? Would that bring me peace? I said no. And then as I grew older, I kept finding in various parts of life that people often forgive the wrongs I did. I've had a very checkered history. Not all of that has come in the book because I didn't want to lose focus from the prime subject of the book, which was the bombing and the life beyond that. So I've seen people forgive me, and I realized that, when you forgive, when you bring out the truth, when you do things openly with courage, uh, you often find peace, and the other person finds greater peace. So I believe that is now the creed that which I live my life. Yeah, and I practiced it all these years.
Thank you, sir. I'll ponder over it. Definitely, I'll ponder over it.
Please, you can get back to me and we'll have a chat, because I find, there's so many things I've done. You'll see as you read the book, and so many parts that I've not. I could have had. I've written about the CBI. If you've seen that,
Yes, 8 hours
none of
of
you all have actually.
interrogation.
I have been through hell. I have been interrogated.
Yeah.
Now that was a false complaint. Yes, I had a house. Yes,
Mm,
I got it, but somebody put me through hell. But I didn't think I could have taken revenge. But that bitterness of revenge burns you within, and I've had it. You don't want that. I want to fight. I'm a fighter to death. I want to fight for victory. I want to fight for justice. I'm a protagonist. The carbon, the pro forma, they wrote the protagonist. I want to help the underdog, but I don't want only revenge in anything. I don't want to run after revenge. I could use that to create something positive. I feel that energy, and I've done that in my life. I still do. So that's what it is.
I needed that, I think. Thank you so
No,
much,
no,
sir,
no.
for saying so.
We can, Sneha ji, we can sit and talk on any day. You give me a buzz. You've got my number. I can explain to you so many things that
Yeah.
I've felt. We've spoken, and my friends could have, I could have gone the way of my friends. Some of my friends have landed up in jail. Some of them have been killed. I didn't want to put all this in, but it's there. I mean, if you read between the lines, you can see that they've really ended up on the other side of the railway track, okay, or under a train, or bombed out of their lives, or whatever. Uh, there are some things that happen which are wrong now, like Sujata pointed out. Somebody's done something for a cause or whatever. No cause can be so big or so deep that you can kill 85 children in a bomb. No cause can be so great that you can kill 329 people in one aircraft. Nothing. So I don't believe that, revenge is the only thing that we look for. I sometimes find that doing things positively, whether it's charity and social service like Sujata's family, her brother has done in Kakinada, or helping orphans. I do that. Do things which will bring peace in those spheres. Is helpful. Yes, if somebody files a case against you, or somebody is taking bringing physical pain on you, then you defend yourself. But revenge is a negative emotion. It's a negative connotation itself. Revenge. So I don't want to. I don't go down that. Sorry, not. We will talk. We'll talk. It's a very interesting topic. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
8 hours of
Thank you so
interrogation,
much
like
for having me.
It's been a
I think.
wonderful evening, huh, Sneha? I think
Sorry,
you
Sneha
should.
ji, it was, they came, first they harassed my friends who were involved in that construction company. They went and then they pulled me out, and I came. I remember telling my wife, now my ex-wife, but if I don't come back by evening, and I had already developed
Yeah.
the sense of law. By then I'd done my law already. Because I know of on a Friday evening, if you go
Hmm.
to interrogation and it's not completed, they can keep you there, and then
Yeah.
Monday before you get out. So
Hmm.
we went on a Monday, and then
One.
I said, if I don't come out in so many hours, then you call the lawyer and we'll move the court or whatever. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's happened. It's not that it's not happened. It's happened. And I've had a lot of political problems with the government of the day in that time. I've had issues, yes, but I've fought, and I've stood tall. And like I don't know if you heard Frank Sinatra's way. I did it my way. That was my
Yeah,
dad's
I
favorite
did.
hymn, which I played even at his funeral. And yeah, I did it. I did it, did it all, ups and downs. So, but thank you. Thank you all for taking so much of time. It's been such an honor and privilege to be with you. And yeah, I've got my book here. That's my book.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. And I hope you do
I
get
will
to
get
read.
the I will get the book to read. I'll
Yes,
get it and
please. Yes, please. And I'd love you to also, be in the next one. And the thing is, I want people, I don't want them to buy the book for, the money it is or anything. It's, I want the values that I've tried to share here, be inculcated, be imbibed, the struggle, the fight. Life is always worth fighting for, and it's always worth fighting for getting something better, whether it's for yourself, for your community, for your family, even as a child, as a youngster. You don't give up. You don't give up hope on anything. And that's what I want youngsters to know, that
Yes.
you can't just jump off because you got 10 marks less, or you can't take to drugs because things aren't going your way, or you can't take to drink. Though I did drugs, I did drink, I did, and I'm honest about it. But I steered close, away from it. And I told my kids, do what you want, just do it in moderation. Make sure you come home every night, and don't throw away your life for nothing. Don't allow anybody else to take it. So that's it, and
So,
thank you very much.
as we conclude this evening, which Sneha is going to do, I think your book is really beyond the Kanishk tragedy. It's beyond that. It is really the story of a 17-year-old or maybe even a younger child, and therefore it's a book for young people. I think I would recommend it to adolescents to read. No, it's very inspirational, and for mothers to also read, and see how to bring up their
And
children.
fathers, and fathers.
Yes, yes, and fathers. Yes,
Yeah.
and fathers. That's
I tried
true.
to keep the language very simple, if you noticed. I didn't want
Yes.
to
Yes,
like make it
that's what I'm
hype.
saying. The narrative is excellent. It's so smooth. It's so nice, and it's like
Hmm.
it's like we know you. It was like that. And as teachers and students of literature, I'm sure Sujata, when she reads the book also, and Sneha has read it, Gargi's read it, Prasanna, we, if you notice, have read very closely.
Yes,
It's not as if we're doing this just for a show. We have really read your book very closely because it's
absolutely.
a fascinating thing. And I think, Sneha, you can conclude the evening with just a few words. You know?
So, to end with, I would like to thank and congratulate Mr. Sanjay Lazar for giving us the opportunity to know him and the atrocities of Kanishka Air India 182 bombing from an aspect of a victim through his book and his talks. We are eagerly waiting to read the next edition of the book, which focuses on conspiracies and cover ups of the most tragic incident in the history of aviation terrorism, wherein more than 331 innocent lives were lost. I deeply convey my gratitude to Sujata ma'am for sharing her side of the story with us, and Dr. Rupali ma'am for her time and insight into the book. My gratefulness to Dr. Gargi and Mr. Prasanna for their detailed perspective. On behalf of the Fertile Brains, I conclude this event. Thank you all for watching us tonight.
Thank you
Well,
so much.
thank you so much, Sneha.
Thank you so much, Sneha ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you,
Rupali.
sir.
Thank you, Sujata
thank you
ma'am,
so much.
Prasanna, and Dr.
We
Gargi. Thank you very
look
much.
forward to
And
your book. I
yes,
look
And keep
forward.
in touch.
yes, yes. And I'll
You
take
have to
care.
read your poem. Read
Oh,
your
definitely.
poems on
I
Zoom.
will read
Yes,
my
yes.
poem. I'll